Hey Disney fans! Did you know that the animatronic dog in the Living with the Land ride at Epcot is actually the same animatronic dog as you see in the Carousel of Progress over at Magic Kingdom and the Pirates of the Caribbean? Why are Disney Imagineers so obsessed with this animatronic dog? Well, I am told that this dog was actually modeled after Walt Disney's own Pooch.
That is adorable. And also, like a little bit megalomaniacal, if I may say.
Walt Disney? No, no.
In this video, we're going to talk about some of the hidden gems at Walt Disney World. There are some really amazing things hidden in plain sight. And look, just attractions-wise, there's over 200 at Disney World. So it's pretty understandable why most visitors, and certainly most first-time visitors, are going to visit the most popular attractions. That makes sense. And we're not saying don't visit those attractions. We're saying, yeah, go visit those attractions. But once you've done that, there is a treasure trove left to explore. Disney World has so much to offer people of all ages, and a lot of the attractions just get like no love at all. I'm Clover, and this is Loop. In this video, we're going to look at the top 10 most underrated attractions at Disney World.
Yeah, so it's a popular misconception that the most popular rides are the only worthwhile rides at Walt Disney World. And as you mentioned, if you don't go to Disney very often, it makes sense that you're going to want to focus your time on the Space Mountains and the Rises of the Resistance and all those e-ticket rides that people are going to ask you about when you get back home.
And Space Mountain and Rise of the Resistance are awesome. You should really check those out for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not saying that the rides that we're looking at in this video are the best rides and they're the only ones you should look at, but the fact of the matter is, Walt Disney World gets more interesting the closer you look. And there is this whole category of ride and attractions that truly just gets overlooked. You truly pass them by. The names aren't like in pop culture. So when someone says, hey, you want to go ride Living with the Land? Like, everyone's like, what? So we're here to tell you about some of the rides and attractions that you should not overlook just because you don't already know the names.
And I will admit, some of these are kind of like for fans only. I mean, really, like there's some deep cuts
not in
here.
A sexy way.
Yeah.
But
no, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
No. Let's start with number 10, which is Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin. This is a cool ride for a number of reasons, but one of them is that it's an all-ages ride with no height restriction. And so if you're at Disney World with your family and you have littles, it's a nice ride for everybody to be able to go on together for sure.
yeah, it's one of those, it's in what I call, like, it's in Tomorrowland at Magic Kingdom. It's in, like, the strip mall of Tomorrowland where you're going down that long stretch where there's, like, some stores and different attractions kind of built into the walls. This one you could almost easily walk right by. It hasn't always been Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin. That ride actually opened in 1998, just 3 years after the first Toy Story movie, which I think that's pretty good turnaround time on that.
3 years is pretty good turnaround time.
Yeah, I feel like Disney really takes its time in terms of bringing like attraction, like movies to life. Am I wrong about that?
Fair. They definitely take their time, like using Tron Light Cycle Run as an example. They definitely take their time.
Good point. That. So, yeah, but I'll tell you, the ride that was like in this space before was like a total missable ride. It started out, it was first named If You Had Wings, and it was sponsored by Eastern Airlines.
I can just imagine the theme song now. Now I want to look it up.
I know. It was essentially just this like dark ride. It would use the same like ride system essentially as Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin, but it just took you through like a history of flight, and it was like just projections. And I mean, it sounds like a total snooze fest. I never actually rode it, so maybe that's not fair. Maybe this would have made my underrated attractions list.
Did you ever ride any of the previous rides in this space? Because if so, for sure, leave us a comment. And I am fascinated with like previous iterations of a ride. There's something about that that's like mystical to me.
Yeah, because it was called If You Had Wings, and it was renamed to If You Could Fly. Then it was called Delta Dream Flight for like the years that Delta was sponsoring it, and then it was just called Take Flight. But I think it was all pretty much the same thing, and it sounds very much like it belonged at Epcot rather than Magic Kingdom.
For sure, yeah. It's like edutainment.
Yeah, exactly. so finally, they put some worthwhile IP in there in 1998, and we got Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin. And like you mentioned, it's a ride through. It's a dark ride. You get all the cute like animatronics and little like cardboard characters popping up, but it's also gamified. You have your little laser blaster, and there are targets everywhere, and some of when they light up, they're worth more. It's a totally repeatable ride. Like the tweens and teens are going to be obsessed with like the game aspect of it. But like even if you just got like a total little who can't aim, like for shit, they're still going to enjoy like looking at all the like bright colors and fun characters. And there's like a really cool Zurg animatronic, and even right here in the queue, like a pretty, aside from the kind of like light up dated face, it's a really good Buzz animatronic in the queue.
So like I don't know if I would categorize it as like really good.
I
mean that's fair. I'm not.
Okay, it looks like the toy. It really does look like the toy.
I do wish that the projected head thing hadn't ever become something. I think at the time it looked all right, but it just sort of doesn't look very good now.
Yeah, and when Microsoft crashes and it just becomes like a creepy blank face, that's
like
a problem. Yeah. But either way, some of the reasons we think this deserves more attention than it gets. The repeatability, the super cute queue. Overall, it's worth the wait. I'd say more than anything, it's worth the wait because it honestly tends to have a very low wait. It's a high capacity ride. Check it out. Moving on.
It does move. It does move quickly. The Omnimover rides do tend to move quickly usually.
All right, so moving on to number 9, one of my favorites is the People Mover. Also in Tomorrowland at Magic Kingdom, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is a ride that moves people, specifically on a track all above Tomorrowland, and it takes you all around the land, both indoor and outdoor. So sometimes you're outdoor on a track, like looking down on people walking through Tomorrowland, but the really cool element is it takes you like kind of on a behind-the-scenes tour of some of the Tomorrowland attractions, which includes Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin, also Space Mountain, and Tron. So, and then there are like also just kind of like little hidden secrets in the ride too, including like a giant model of the original concept for Epcot.
Yeah, I'm going to scrub forward to that.
Yeah.
It's not, here we go.
But you're just like in a dark corridor and suddenly it's like, what is this? Oh, it's a giant, like really cool model.
Yeah, and I think this is, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please, but I'm pretty sure this is the actual original model that megalomaniacal Mr. Disney, who wanted to build a utopia and have total control, I think it's the original model. I love miniatures, so this one is great. It's like, it's not even, would you call it a bigature? I don't even know who came up with that term, but I think it's cute. It's an awesome model. It's awesome. And it's right there in the People Mover.
Yeah, and that's not even really the only like behind the scenes thing. I mean, in addition to seeing the rides, you see these like little future-y scenes and stuff like that with like robot dogs and it's It's totally worthwhile. It's like 10 minutes long.
Yeah, it's a really long ride, and it's true that cheesy stuff, like, it still totally works for me.
Give me a little history. What do we know about the old people mover?
Well, we know that it hasn't always been the people mover. It was originally called the Wedway people mover. Again, look, I'm going to sound like a broken record, so I'm going to stop using the word megalomaniacal.
It's so fun to say, though. I can't even say it.
It has a lot of bounces in it.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say Mr. Disney. WED standing for Walter Elias Disney, and the name the Wedway People Mover. Anyway, that it debuted in 1975 and went to 1994 under that name. When it became the Tomorrowland Transit Authority until 2009, and then the Tomorrowland Transit Authority People Mover until 2022, and then just the People Mover. Now, I gotta say, the just the People Mover naming thing, like currently just the People Mover, I do take issue with that a smidge, because if you look at Disneyland's like official site, they do call it the Tomorrowland Transit Authority People Mover. So like it's still called that. I don't know.
Everyone just calls it the People Mover.
It's always been just the People Mover.
The People Mover. Anyway.
Yeah.
Disney and its renaming, like with the fine points, I don't just is the People Mover.
It's not the original People Mover. It's based on the one that used to be at Disneyland in California, and that one used rubber tires were in the tracks, and the rubber tires themselves would spin. I actually think it's maybe the same thing that a lot of roller coasters use. Anyway, that's not the same tech they use. They upgraded to electric linear induction motors, which is fancy and a little beyond my capability to explain or, really understand.
I'm guessing as a technology, it's probably better than what they were using at Disneyland, because it is no longer even at Disneyland, and people like beg them. They're like online petitions to bring it back to Disneyland, and they just won't. So I'm so glad it's at Disney World.
Yeah. It's super long, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I think the reason it's underrated is, it's not like a big themed, like elaborate ride. It's really long, relaxing. It's almost kind of like a train ride, but that even undersells it, because there's just so much cool behind the scenes stuff. Like there is one of the big, like the yes, you nailed it, is if you ride the People Mover and you manage to go through Space Mountain when the lights are on. Like that's your only chance to like see Space Mountain with the lights on. But like there's actually a pretty decent chance of that happening. Like if Space Mountain goes down and everyone's like off the ride, like the People Mover keeps running, so you might get to go through Space Mountain like while the lights are on. That's super cool.
Have you done that?
Once, yes.
All right.
Yes, we did go through once when the lights are on. I think we have it was like a long time ago, so I think we have like a terrible like flip phone video of it somewhere, maybe. But yes, I have seen that once, and it was super cool. But even when you don't like land that like secret gem, it's just relaxing. It's comfortable. The seats are actually really comfortable. It's a little bit zippy. And even when you're outside, like looking down on people, like one of my favorite things to do at Disney World is to people watch. And so it's like people watching the ride. It's People Mover and the People Watcher.
Oh,
so
should we start an online petition to rename it the People Watcher?
Rename it the People Watcher. Absolutely.
All right.
So, yes.
I'm in.
All right.
No, actually, I'm not.
You're
I'm
not?
officially People Mover.
Okay.
And not Tomorrowland Transit Authority People Mover either, just People Mover.
People
Right?
Mover. Yeah.
I don't feel like that's a hot take, really.
Yeah. Shall we people move along?
Yeah. The next up, number 8, is a dinosaur, which is at Animal Kingdom, and it's inside of Dinoland USA, which has gotten a lot of talk lately because they took out Hester and Chester's, I can't remember the whole name. Anyway, that's gone now.
Dino-Rama? There's
Yes,
Dino-Rama
the Dino-Rama.
Yeah.
So the height requirement on Dinosaur is actually pretty low at 40 inches. And I got to say, like, I think that might lull families into a false sense of security, thinking that their kiddos can ride the ride, which safe, like from a OSHA standpoint or whoever is in charge of these things, yeah, but they might not be ready for it. I think that this is not a kid's ride, and maybe that's just me being like, I don't understand the kids.
Oh,
but it doesn't seem like a kid's ride to me.
My 4-year-old niece will agree. My 4-year-old niece had exactly the same experience that I did on the ride, which was getting on it, being like, cool, dinosaur ride. Yeah, let's go. And it hardly ever has a wait. It's like, I mean, truly underrated. Like, what I'm going to say sounds critical, but I actually think this is a really cool ride. It's super thrilling. I think the problem is that until you ride it, you don't know it's thrilling. There is no hint that this is going to be a terrifying ride, and it is.
So far, it's like, this is the Museum of Natural History section. Like, there's not... Eventually, you get the pre-show thing that's like, this is bumpy.
Right.
But you're pretty far into the ride at that point.
It is undersold. It is dark. It is loud.
Yeah, it's one of the loudest rides I've ever been on.
And it has really great, scary dinosaur animatronics, but they like run right at you.
All right, let me see if I can... Let me forward to the ride itself. Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah, and I mean, I have multiple photos of me. They do the thing where they take a photo of you on the ride, and I have multiple photos of me, even knowing what's coming, looking like I'm going to cry. And so I keep riding it because I do think it's a good ride. But it does have a horror movie effect. And like I said, my 4-year-old niece, that was her like chief objection to her like week-long Disney vacation
was this right?
Was I hate dinosaurs.
Oh, just because it was too much.
It was too scary. Yeah. And it is too scary. But like I said, if you're prepared for that and that's what you're into, it's a great ride.
This ride has a body count.
It does.
Not a lot of attractions can lay claim to that. This part of the ride is not.
It's mainly black. Yeah. But that actually does demonstrate how dark this ride gets, and that's one of the parts that's so scary. Yeah.
I think it was someone with a pacemaker rode the ride, and it did not end well.
Yeah. A few rides have that story, but this is one, and yeah, it just goes to show you. Because, I mean, if you ride, like, Mission Space, you're like, well, yeah, of course that ride's going to kill some people. This one isn't, like, motion intense. It's got the same, like, ride technology going as the Indiana Jones ride, which is kind of that, like, super, like, wobbly, I'm in a giant Jeep type of thing. But in this case, you're in, like, a time machine.
The pre-show, I feel like, has gained cult status. And Dinosaur's not going to be there forever, so I would actually highly recommend riding this while you can. I think it's going to go away. Yeah,
so this ride actually wasn't always Dinosaur. It opened with the park as in 1998 as Countdown to Extinction. And I didn't ride it as Countdown to Extinction. I think I rode it like very shortly after it was changed to Dinosaur and they added that Dinosaur movie IP to it. It was pretty much the same ride, but by all accounts, like they say that they made it less intense when they turned it into Dinosaur. They said that they made it less dark and less loud and less scary. And so, I mean, I would have just straight pooed my pants on the original. Because that's amazing to me. So yeah, they changed the name to Dinosaur in 2000 to promote the Disney animated feature film that like no one has seen.
Oh my God! Until just now, I didn't write this part of the script. I totally forgot. Totally forgot that this is based on the movie Dinosaur.
Oh, yeah, they put the iguanodon. What's funny is they must have known Dinosaur was being made because the iguanodon was already a character in the ride. And it's like, what the hell's an iguanodon? So they must have like known it was coming and then just like fully themed it or something like that. But so yeah, it's in Dinoland USA, and Dinoland USA is like undergoing a transformation right now. It's going to be replaced with a new land called Tropical Americas, and that's expected.
Which I think just broke ground like maybe this week.
Yeah, they've already started the transition, and a lot of stuff in Dinoland USA has gone away. The full land is expected to open by fall 2027, and they don't have word on a closure date for Dinosaur, and they've officially said that it's going to be like open through 2025.
Oh, right, they did make the announcement.
So
right?
you at least
we don't
have
know
this
when
year.
exactly, but
yeah, you have this year, and if you haven't ridden it, like truly do check it out because it is a one of a kind.
And even though it's showing its age, like a lot of Disney attractions are, Disney takes pretty good care of its rides, and I am a fan of this ride system in theory anyway. I mean, it's not always used really, really well, but this is the same ride system that Indiana Jones Adventure at Disneyland in California uses. I think they're like the exact same vehicles, just themed differently. And so it kind of adds like an extra dimension of movement beyond just the track. And when it's programmed correctly, it's kind of awesome.
Yeah. Well, okay, for number 8, we're going to go to the total opposite end of the spectrum on thrills. And
this is number 7.
So this is number 7.
Yeah.
Number 7, the Main Street vehicles.
Right.
So these are over at Magic Kingdom, and they're the like cars and transportation that you see going up and down Main Street. They're typically only running like during the first half of the day. There are 4 different Main Street vehicles. There's the vintage horse-drawn trolley. There's the omnibus. There's the jitney, which is like an old-timey car, and the fire engine. So, they close when it gets dark or during like particularly busy times of day, but essentially they have like pickup spots at the beginning of Main Street, and then they take you all the way down to the castle and drop you off, or you can get on at the castle and ride it back to the entrance.
They usually don't do round trip rides, but in this video, they did a round trip ride for us. I think it was maybe the last one of the day.
Yeah.
But
they're exactly what they look like. They're these little old-timey replicas. Walt Disney was this huge, like, train and vehicle nerd. And so it really was like, I can just picture him having, like, an old man.
Vehicle nerd.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I can just picture him having, like, an old man tantrum, like, I want old-timey cars! But he didn't call them old-timey cars. He just called them cars. But, it's kind of cool. There's the horse-drawn trolleys, and the horses at Disney World actually they stay over at the ranch located at Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort and Campground. And having actually been to that ranch makes me feel better about the horses working at Magic Kingdom, because I see like how pampered they are over at the ranch.
It is pretty nice over there.
It is really nice.
It's not on this list, but I kind of would recommend checking it out. I don't know that you necessarily have to be a guest of the resort. You might need to have a reservation or something there. I don't know, but like, did you say it's Fort Wilderness?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, give me a little history.
Okay,
on
fine. I'll throw some history
Main
at you.
Street vehicles.
The park opened in 1971, and the Main Street vehicles were there. So speaking of the horse-drawn trolley, you can see it right there. So this is a Disneyland original attraction as well. So, it was very much a Walt Disney, I want this thing at these parks, and so let's make sure that they have it. The idea came from a trip that he took with Ward Kimball, who was a Disney animator and someone who worked on the Disney parks.
A fellow vehicle nerd.
Ward Kimball was definitely a rail enthusiast and just a car nerd, I think, in general. So there was something called the Chicago Railroad Fair in the summer of 1948. And I guess like that's where they cooked up this idea.
They took a boys' road trip. They saw some cars, and Walt's like, "I'm going to do that." Yeah.
Bob Gurr developed the vehicles themselves, which I don't think any of them are like actual original vehicles. You know, I think. Do you know?
No, they're all replicas. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, unlike the like trains that are like have some authenticity to them.
Okay.
Yeah, these were made just for the parks to replicate something else.
Why are you so into Main Street vehicles,
Well,
Loop?
I think I like they bring a complete different dimension to the park and to like the experience at the parks. Like most people, like one of the reasons they're so underrated, I think, is most people just race up and down Main Street. They either are racing down Main Street to start their day and to get to other rides, or they're like, like just exhaustedly like stumbling down it to get like out of the park at some point. Therefore, I don't think Main Street, like, you don't get to spend as much time as Main Street deserves, like, looking at all the shops and just taking in all of the, like, loving details on Main Street. And this is, like, an amazing way to do that. You just get on a vehicle, you get a nice slow trip down, you don't have to worry about bumping into people or, like, getting run over by a stroller. And also, like, it's like you're having a private tour guide. Like these are like, depending on the vehicle, all the vehicles, there's always like a person talking to you while you go up and down, and they're giving you little like tidbits. And, these are always like the cast members who like really care, and they all have their interesting things to say. And if
that's true. In my experience, they are the chattiest.
Yeah.
Among the chattiest of the cast members.
And if you're on the omnibus, it's like a little bit of a bigger group, so you're getting just more of like a kind of canned spiel. But if you're riding like the fire engine or like the jitney, it really is kind of like your own little personal tour, and you're just kind of chit-chatting with the driver. And that's just... It's one of those things that's like wholly unique. You just don't get that at other theme parks, and it's one of the things that makes Disney Disney. And again, it's just the number of people who just blow right by them without considering riding them. Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, especially, I think they're especially skipped because they're right there at the front of the park. And if you're there to get the job done, you're going to go right past them. I mean, it makes sense that you're going to get into the park. And these aren't like quite in the park, they're on the outer part of everything. We're going to talk about the Carousel of Progress because
speaking of
that's
old
number
timey,
6.
Yeah.
All right. So Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress, which is the official name of this attraction, is long. It's really long. It is 22 minutes long, I think. So it's not really a ride. It's a show, and it's a theater where the audience moves around a central circular stage. You can't leave, and they make that pretty clear from the get-go. So, like, if you go to this ride and you have to, like, use the bathroom or whatever, they're going to tell you like you need to wait. It's weird. It's one of the few rides where they're just like, forget it if you want to get off.
They warn you so many times. And like you can't stand up too. So if you got like a fussy baby or something like that, like we were in there one time with like, a family who was having some baby troubles, and they're like, no, seriously, sit down. We don't care that your baby wants to be rocked. Like sit down.
They lay claim to being the longest running stage show in the history of American theater. That can't be true, right?
Sure. I mean, sure it can. Like,
Did anybody put numbers to it? Because it's got to be like it's got to
yeah.
be really big, right?
I mean, well, that's the thing. It's kind of like cheating. It's like you don't. It's the longest running stage show, but you don't have any actors up there. You know, like these.
Well, sure.
Like as long as the electricity's still on, like your show is still going. So.
Well, when did it? It's like super old, right? It's one of the oldest.
It is, yeah. So it was originally created. I feel like the World's Fair comes up so much when it comes to like Disney. The freaking World's Fair.
The 1964, 65
Yep, yeah.
New York World's Fair, which is like definitely like a seminal moment for a ton of different Disney
Totally.
rides for sure.
Yeah, so it was like, I feel like Walt Disney must have just like owned that fair. But it was originally created for the 64, 65 New York World's Fair. And then, yeah, they just they picked it up and just moved it to Disneyland. And it lived in Disneyland until 1973. And then they just up and picked it up and moved it to Disney World. And that's where it's been running ever since.
Like the actual entire whole ass attraction, they just like loaded it on a
pretty much
bunch of trucks.
Yeah, they took it apart, and I mean the only thing like you still
was it
see
brick by brick?
Brick by brick. No, well, I guess not brick by brick because the big circular building for the attraction is still over in Disneyland, and you know they always kind of put different weird things in there. So that's the evidence that it was once at Disneyland, but indeed. Yeah, they just moved the whole dang show over to Disney World. It's been running since 73. It's had multiple updates over the years, but like nothing like terribly major. They did an update, the latest was in 2022.
Okay.
But often it's really just like spiffing up. So what it is it takes you like on a ride through like technology through the decades, kind of as seen through like the eyes of like the American family. So there's a lot of cringe to it. You know, there's a lot like, I mean, how can it not be? You know, because it's like 1920s, 1940s, 1960s, and
I'm trying to find. Here we go.
A lot of family stereotypes
where like the dad talks to the daughter, and it's not great.
Yeah. So the scene that gets updated is like there's like a look into the future, and like
go straight to that.
Yeah, and so like in 2022, you know, now it's like it's actually like it's kind of funny because it's all like stuff that's actually like real today. It's like grandma's like playing on the VR headset, and the like appliances are like talking to them and stuff like that, and they're talking to the appliances. Like it's all, you know, a pretty predictable like future scenario. But you know, it's got a ton of animatronics, and it's really kind of a piece of living history.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes up a big chunk of real estate. So everyone's always kind of like, oh, one day it's going to vanish forever. But
it will totally vanish forever. I mean,
it hasn't.
It hasn't yet, and it has really strong Horizons vibes, and like people still talk about and love Horizons from over at Epcot, and so I think when this one goes away, that it'll be mourned.
All right, so what are some of the reasons that this is underappreciated?
It's got a really great theme song. There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow, which I'm pretty sure was composed by the Sherman Brothers. And it says right. So right, indeed, it was composed by the Sherman Brothers. It's like it's an earworm. It's a ride earworm, which was like a thing that Disney used to do on like all of its attractions, and you don't get that really much anymore.
It's as earwormy as like It's a Small World. Like if you ride this ride, that song will be in your head for the rest of the day.
Yeah. So there's a crap ton of Easter eggs on this ride, hidden Mickeys. So here, a couple really quick. The dad is played by the actor Gene Shepard, who is the same actor who plays the narrator in A Christmas Story, the Christmas movie.
And once you hear that, you can't unhear it. You're like, totally.
The character who plays Uncle Orville, who we do see in the scene, but just not at this exact moment, is played by the same actor as Bugs Bunny, Mel Blanc. Is that Orville? Is that Uncle Orville?
I don't know that you do see Uncle Orville. Yeah, you might be right. He's in a few scenes. I don't know if he's like one of those like off stage voices or not. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you know, please leave a comment. I was mentioning that it's a long ride and that can be inconvenient sometimes, but on like a hot or rainy day in Orlando, it's actually like a nice little break from the day. I always recommend to people who ask me for Disney World advice to like take a break in the middle of the day, and this is kind of a nice way to kick that off. Because it really is. It's like it's air conditioned and it lasts a long time. So
you could take a nap. Like, I mean, go ahead and watch a show if you want to, but you could also take like a little like power nap. It's quiet and like smooth enough. Yeah. So.
All right, what's up next?
All right, moving on to number 5, the KidCot Fun Stops over at Epcot. And this is a bit of a unique inclusion on our list because it's not something like we're not even just talking about like an underrated like ride or attraction. Like most people, like this isn't something that'll even like really even pop up on the map unless you're looking for it. So this is more just like a feature of Epcot. So what it is when you go to, so Epcot's got kind of its 2 big chunks with the world. Epcots. Yeah, the 2 Epcots with, so this is in specifically World Showcase where all the different country pavilions go around the lagoon. This is a way to entertain the kiddos, but it's also like a really cool way to see Epcot, and that is that there are, I believe, just 11 stations now at the different pavilions all around World Showcase. And what it is at each station, it's staffed by someone who works at Epcot, who is like natively like from the country they're representing, and you get like little KidCot cards, and the cards like come with a sticker.
And I'll show you that in a sec. But I apologize for interrupting. It's just here in the video. That cave-looking thing in the bottom right is where the exit of the Far and Wide show is, and that's where the KidCot stop is.
Yeah.
Just wanted to point it out.
And sometimes, you actually, like the KidCot, it's almost kind of like doing a scavenger hunt. Like, they're not trying to hide the KidCot stations, but sometimes, like, if you're looking for them, sometimes they actually can be kind of tricky to find.
I can't remember which one this is. Maybe France or maybe the UK.
Yeah. I don't know.
But these pictures, so like on the right, you can see one of the KidCot stops. On the left, you can see, I don't know that it's sponsored by Ziploc anymore, but at the time they gave you a cool little...
I believe it is. So, yeah, you get this little Ziploc suitcase, and so you can keep all your little cards in there, and they're postcards. They come with a sticker, but often, like, the coolest part, I think, is that, like, the cast members will often, like, sign it for you or write, like, a little note, like, in their language or, like, something, like, cutesy to represent their country. And the cast members who work these stations, like all Disney cast members, are always just so sweet and friendly. They have like, you can do like a little activity on each card if you want. So there's like multiple things to like get your kid interested in. But what's cool is like, it's just a way to go around the park, and like if you're the parent, like you can be like eating and drinking your way around Epcot while your kids are just having a frickin' blast. And your kid thinks it's all for them, but like really you're just like, look, this is just the way I get you to do the boring stuff with me while you're being like thoroughly entertained.
Yeah, it is an effective ruse to be able to do like the kind of lame grown-up stuff.
Yeah. And our kid totally bought into it. And when I was like researching this part of the podcast, I was like, I kind of want to go back alone and do KidCot just myself. Like it's just it's
Do you
fun.
think they'd be weird about it?
No, It's Disney. No, they'd be super into it. You just got to own it.
What are all the different KidCot stops? Because you said there's 11, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
so if we're going from Canada, Canada's the first one.
Yeah.
And that's it's at the exit of the Canada Far and Wide in Circle Vision 360.
Right.
And then you go over to the United Kingdom Pavilion, and that's the KidCot stops at the Toy Soldier.
All right, hold up. I think I got to...
Oh my gosh, are you going to show us all of them?
So we're coming up on the UK Pavilion.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take a right, there at the very left of the screen, you can see Toy Soldier. It's the toy store.
Yeah. And then you go over to the France Pavilion, and the KidCot stop is at the Souvenirs de France.
Oh, Souvenirs de France, you say?
That's what I say. That's what the internet
Which
says.
is at 320.
Mm-hmm.
So I have it marked.
Oh, you
Yep.
did all your research.
I kind of did. And
Yeah.
so it's like down this alley in France.
Yeah.
There's
And-
really good ice cream down here, too.
Yeah. And no, and it's great. And like the KidCot, like I said, it gives you, as like a parent, like an excuse to actually walk back into these pavilions, whereas your kid just might not otherwise be into it.
Yeah, yeah.
Then
That's true.
there's the Morocco Pavilion at the marketplace in the Medina.
So as you walk into Morocco here, you would walk through the big archway, and in there is where you find the KidCot stop.
Right on. And then there's my favorite, the Japan Pavilion. And it's in the, how do you say it? Bajutsukan Gallery?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the Japan Pavilion, and let's look at that. So right in the middle of the screen there, that's the exit from the Mitsukoshi store, which is like the supermarket that's at the ground level of the large building that's on the right side of the Japan Pavilion. For years, it's had the same exhibit, which is like this kawaii exhibit, right? Where it's like the Japanese culture of cute. This statue, it gets stuck in my head. It lives rent-free in my head. I don't know.
It looks like bubble gum.
I think maybe it's supposed to.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so that's like the underrated attraction inside the underrated attraction is this gallery. Moving on from Japan, there is the American Adventure Pavilion.
Okay.
And that one, the KidCot station is outside near the Art of Disney.
So we're going to pan past it and we'll see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of these are like inside
So right
shops.
there in the middle with the umbrella, that's where it is.
Yeah, some of these are more tucked away than others.
Yeah, and by the way, these aren't exactly where they are all the time. This is sort of like generally. Sometimes you have to ask.
They reserve the right to move them around, especially in inclement weather. Then there's the Italy Pavilion, and the KidCot station is also outside in that one, and it's near La Bottega Italiana. I shouldn't be the one saying these things because me and languages.
So as you walk by the Italy Pavilion, so this building, it's on the left of the screen right now that we're walking past. In this particular tour, we managed to not film it at all, but it's actually in this building to the right, so that's where you would look for it.
Uh-huh. And then you move along to the Germany Pavilion, and it's at Volkunst.
Yep, which is right here. As you walk into the Germany Pavilion, you will see it. Oops, sorry, I went too far forward. So it'll be right there on your right, coming into focus. In 5.
Huh?
There
Oh, so
it is.
No, it's by
There it
by the
is.
beer garden.
There you
Yeah, yeah.
are.
All right, and then you move along to China, and the KidCot station in China is near the exit of Reflections of China.
Which is like right around here. That at the very end, that gift shop is where it pops you out after the show.
And then we're almost there. Then we go to Norway.
Mm-hmm. And Norway's
KidCot is at the Puffin's Roost.
Okay, so this footage is not from this year. It's a couple of years old. I have no idea where the Puffin's Roost is.
Oh,
I
interesting.
really tried to find it, and I can find it in pictures.
Okay.
But I can't place where it is. I don't.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Maybe I didn't look hard enough, but I was discouraged that I couldn't find more information about the Puffin's Puff.
Yeah, and
What's it called?
The Puffin's Roost.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's been so long since we actually did the KidCot thing with our kiddo that, like, I'm sure these things have moved around a little bit.
Yeah.
But then finally you end at Mexico, and the KidCot is near the Mexico Folk Art Gallery, which I assume is inside the huge marketplace.
It's this.
Gotcha.
It's this area, which it's been the cocoa.
Yes.
The art of cocoa for a long time. I'm pretty sure it still is.
Yeah. Yeah, the Mexico Pavilion's always so busy, but it always feels like it's like the most air-conditioned place in Epcot. Like, you go in and you're like, oh my God, I don't ever want to leave, like if you go in the summer.
Well, it's a vibe. I mean, when you go into this portion that we're walking into right now, like through the this archway here, where it's like fake outdoors. Mm-hmm. I love fake outdoors.
I do love fake outdoors.
It's
fake skies.
Got to be related to my fascination with miniatures. Anyway.
All right. Okay. That was a very long tour of KidCot. But do you want to give some history fun facts?
Sure. I actually don't know when it started, and we looked and we couldn't exactly find. I don't think KidCot has not always been going. At least I don't think so. But if you happen to know when it started, I'd be interested to know. Let me know in the comments, please. Until 2009, there were KidCot fun stops also in Future World, at the Land, at the Seas, at Interventions, and at Test Track. Obviously gone now. It is later than 2009 as of the recording of this video. And then before Ziploc was the sponsor, they were sponsored by Sharpie.
Yeah.
And I remember that pretty well because they would like draw, like a simple drawing, something about their country.
Yeah. Like the two products that could sponsor KidCot, like have now sponsored KidCot. So I don't know what they're going to do next. Like United Paper or something is going to have to be the sponsor.
Yes.
But yeah, but both very appropriate sponsorships.
Yeah. And then there's also another pretty fun scavenger hunt, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we put KidCot as like one of the most underrated attractions, but like almost a tie, I would say, would be the DuckTales World Showcase adventure. I won't go into too much detail, but it's essentially another way to like get kids interested in exploring World Showcase, but it's like an interactive game, so you need a cell phone or a tablet to participate, but like it's hosted by like all the DuckTales character, and it's a ton of original content, and you actually go through and use your advice to like trigger like real world stuff. Like in some cases you might be in a shop and like a little animatronic might pop up off of a shelf and you wouldn't even know it was there unless you were participating in this game. So if you're actually doing the game with your kids and you go in a shop and like make something happen, you will have people be like, what are you doing? Like, how did you do that? What are you doing? And then you have to be like, I'm doing the World Showcase thing. It's like, it completely undermarketed, in my opinion, at Epcot. But and like, I get it if your kids are like super, super little, unless you want to be doing all the stuff yourself and then just pointing at the stuff that happens. It's a little involved, I guess. You got to be willing to commit to it.
It's true. It requires patience.
Yes,
and almost always I've ended up having to ask a cast member about something. But it is cool because like here in the Mitsukoshi area, like there's actually like a physical prop that moves up and down. And then there's another one right outside in the pond area. There's some in the UK. There's some in the Mexico Pavilion, like actual physical things that happen based on your playing of the game. And it doesn't always go perfectly, right?
Yeah. But when it happens, like, it does feel kind of magical. There's even one that involves getting like a custom pressed penny that you have to like give a secret password to a cast member. So
Which is fun.
It's very cool. Great bonus attraction if you're up for it and your kids are into it.
Number 4 is the Gran Fiesta Tour starring the Three Caballeros. It's a fun ride that I feel like a lot of people have not made it as far back into the pavilion as you need to go to get to this ride.
It is hidden away in the Mexico Pavilion. There's some signage out front, but like once you get in, it's pretty easy to overlook, I think.
Yeah, once you get in, it's easy to overlook. Like, you mean like you wouldn't naturally even assume that there was a ride because the entrance to it is not so clear?
Yeah, you go into the Mexico Pavilion, there's a lot of things happening, restaurants, shops, and stuff like that, and it's kind of tucked away over on the left.
Is this true that this is the first World Showcase attraction to feature Disney characters?
Yep, yeah.
Wow. So this is We Should Be Mad at Gran Fiesta Tour for like spoiling everything that was cool with IP.
If you think that it is terrible to overlay Disney IP on existing attractions, then yes. Like World Showcase was pure until 2007 when they overlaid the Gran Fiesta Tour on El Rio del Tempo, which was that was the boat ride that was in there before this one.
All right. Well, this is another one that's all ages, no height requirement. And I guess the notes here say that Frozen Ever After was like the second.
Yeah. Yeah,
wow.
and that one was the Frozen Ever After. That one was just so overt, you know. Everyone's like, "There goes Maelstrom for Frozen." This one a little more subtle, like it was a little like boat ride, and they slapped some animated birds on top of it. But I think for the better. I think it's super cute. So, like I said, it opened in 2007, it replaced the existing boat ride that previously was at the Mexico Pavilion from 82 up until 2007. And yeah, so let's see. The animatronic. So it has had some updates over the years, actually, since 2007. In 2015, the animatronics from the Three Caballeros made their way onto the attraction in the finale scene. There were no animatronics.
I think this is the scene?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, and those animatronics were originally part of the Mickey Mouse Revue, which that was an attraction that was in Fantasyland.
Oh, cool! I didn't know
before Mickey's PhilharMagic was created.
Okay.
So that was kind of a fun addition that took really kind of a 2D ride and gave it a little bit more Disney magic. The ride is actually currently closed for a big refurbishment, at like a refurbishment the size of which they have not done before. So that's going to reopen in March 2025, and I'm honestly really curious to see what the upgrades are.
That is kind of cool that they're giving it some love. So I like this ride because you can see in the video, like, we're boarding here. It before the ride starts, it floats through the what's it called, San Angel restaurant, which is kind of like Blue Bayou in Disneyland a little bit. Like you get that sort of indoor-outdoor feel.
Yeah, you feel like you're spying on people's dinners. And I don't know, it sounds creepy, but it's kind of fun.
If you look up into the smoke of the volcano, which you can see right here in the video, there is a hidden Mickey there every now and then.
Oh, that's one of the fun ones.
It puffs out a little Mickey-shaped cloud. The Donald Duck going crazy stuff, I think, will appeal to kids because, I don't know. I'll admit that when Donald Duck gets really pissed off, it's hilarious.
It is. Yeah.
And often it doesn't have a super long wait because, like a lot of these, they're not like really highly in demand a lot of the time.
Yeah. No, it's a great way to get in out of the heat. And yeah, you could definitely overlook it if you're not paying attention. All right, that brings us to number 3, Finding Nemo, The Big Blue and Beyond.
Yeah, so this is the like Broadway style show at Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, and
Or one of them. There's actually more than one.
yeah, that's true. And it's an original musical over at Animal Kingdom. The music is composed by Kristen Anderson Lopez and Robert Lopez, who have quite like the portfolio. They also composed the music for Frozen, using direct lines from the film, and so I mean, it's like. It has a great soundtrack, and it's just for this show at
it's
Animal
catchy.
Kingdom.
It really is. Like, I the first time I saw the show, I ended up like buying the soundtrack.
Yeah,
because I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, like the song, like Big Blue World and Go with the Flow. Like, if you haven't heard them, you haven't heard them, so you don't know them. But just like they have. Like their Broadway musical numbers.
Yeah, let me see if I can find the Crush part, which is the Go with the Flow part. I feel like that's the part. So the Sharks part, which is like here. Love that part.
Yeah.
There's also the part when Crush comes out. I feel like that's a audience favorite part.
Yeah, and it's a musical, but it's a shortened version of the entire movie.
And it does a pretty good job of nutshelling it too.
Yeah, it does. You don't miss much of the storyline. They took some liberties, but they did a pretty good job.
Originally, it was a 40-minute show called Finding Nemo the Musical, and that started with previews in 2006, and it eventually opened in January of 2007. In March of 2020, along with, all of the parks and kind of everything.
The world.
It closed because of the COVID pandemic. And they reworked the show a little bit into a new show called Finding Nemo, The Big Blue and Beyond, that premiered in 2022 as part of the 50th anniversary celebration. So there's been a lot of upgrades and kind of minor changes over the years, but probably the biggest and most noticeable one is the giant LED backdrop, which is 32. It's a 32-foot LED screen. Reminds me of Weird Al's Frank's 2,000-inch TV, but it does allow them to, as you can see, change the backdrop quickly and make the set design pretty immersive.
Yeah, and when we call this an underrated attraction, it's not that no one goes in to see it. Like, they managed to fill that theater, but it's certainly something that you might not necessarily make the time for, and it's definitely worth making the time for. I mean, this is it's a mini Broadway style, like, musical, and it's like like Broadway loves to do now, the adaptations of movies into musicals. It's like a really great way to give kiddos a taste of an experience like that without having to count on them to sit through like a 2.5-hour production.
Like
you get kind of all the magic of that like on stage Broadway vibe and the music. And I thought the 40-minute version was great and like held my attention, but I can totally see 40 minutes as being a little long for like younger kids. So the 25-minute version is just as good, and it probably brings the experience, like makes it accessible to even younger kids. And we've talked about the music, but like the puppets are amazing.
I like this style. I don't know who was it. Maybe Avenue Q that first made it popular, but in any case, I love the puppet and performer on stage. I like that. What would you call that? Like,
I don't know.
Anyway,
but they kind of do it with the Lion King too. But it's essentially Like, I mean, the performers, like, you could just watch the people. I mean, you end up staring at the puppets because they're so cute and animated, like, but, I mean, the performers are giving, like, true performances and, like, making the faces and all of that. So, like, and there's this, like, huge, the giant Crush puppet.
Yeah,
like,
that's cool.
Like, the singer who performs that, like, it's just as fun to watch them as it is this, like, giant turtle. So, yeah.
True. They kind of like end up sort of disappearing for me at some point, I got to admit. I was just trying to scrub through and find the Crush footage again because it's such a cool, gigantic puppet.
It is, yeah. But they do a great job of, like, keeping, you know, the kids really interested. Like, they have parts where they go out into the audience with, like, jellyfish and run around and stuff. So, anyway, super cool show. One of the best.
Number 2 is the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, located at Disney's Hollywood Studios. It's a pretty long show. It's a half-hour show, which I appreciate it because it's seated and it's shady. And even when it's really, really hot, they have these giant fans going. So, you know, it's not a bad way to take a break. I dig it because it really, they call it spectacular, but it's pretty spectacular. I do think it's aptly named. So the show starts with this whole sequence that we're looking at on video. And here comes the boulder from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And you're like, oh my God, he's going to get run over. Oh my God. He doesn't really get run over. Spoiler alert.
Well, and I like it because it starts with, like, a movie scene, and it's almost like you get into the movie scene and you don't really, like, it's almost like a reveal that they're doing a stunt show, you know?
Right.
And then they kind of get into the nuts and bolts of, like, stuntism.
Stuntism.
Stuntism, yes. So this show has been around a long time.
Yeah, it's
in
old,
theme park
which is
years.
kind of, I hope it survives.
Yeah, it opened on August 25th, 1989.
Damn!
Yeah, and it was the first Indiana Jones attraction at any of the Disney parks. There are some rides and things now, but this was the first intro of Indy into the Disney World.
Oh, cool.
It was supposed to, they were hoping it was going to open with the park, but it was delayed a few months because George Lucas just didn't think it was ready for prime time when the park was ready to go.
Guys, I have some notes.
That's exactly how that went. But that makes it the oldest attraction in Disney Hollywood Studios that's still operating.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's kind of cool.
And it's pretty similar to the original. I mean, in 2000, it received like a 6-month refurbishment to like refresh the sets and add some technical features. In 2004, took that long. They removed the Nazi swastikas on the German trucks and aircraft and all of that. That makes sense. But otherwise, I mean, you're seeing, you know, it's based on Raiders. It's based on the first Indy movie. So you're still seeing really the original.
Even though it debuted in '89, this live show is like kind of amazing. In terms of the sets, this show has more moving parts than any other Disney World show, and some of the set pieces weigh like 100 tons. So I'm going to back this up a tiny bit. So like they just roll these whole buildings out of the way.
Well, and that's kind of impressive because you saw the show when it started and you're like inside a temple. And like now here we are like later in the show and like cars are driving around a marketplace and like you're clearly outdoors. Like,
yeah,
that's pretty impressive.
It is pretty impressive that they kind of like reset and do this whole show multiple times daily. The giant boulder that chases Indy from the beginning, it's 12 feet in diameter and it weighs 400 pounds. So, like, if you genuinely got run over by the ball, it would suck. It's made out of rubber. Like, not solid rubber for sure. It's got to be hollow, right?
Yeah, and because you can kind of see it bounce at the end,
Okay.
and you get to see them, like, roll it back up the hill.
Okay,
So,
cool.
yeah.
Well, this show has pretty incredible pyrotechnics, which hopefully We are about to see some of them here in this video. And the fight scenes are really well choreographed, if that's your kind of thing, like fight choreography. The benches suck and they don't have backs. Do they have backs?
No, they do have backs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's their saving grace. They are a little hard on your bottom. But, but you got a back, so it's a 30-minute show. It's nice to be able to lean back.
Let's see, do we see any? No, we never see any of the seats. But I was going to forward this to a part in the video where we can see the pyrotechnic, because it really is. Like, the grand finale of the show is like...
Yeah, right there, yeah. Yeah, you get the explosions, you get the people falling off the buildings. It's...
I think I said before that it's kind of nice on, like, the whole thing is shady, which is nice. And on particularly, like, blazingly hot, sunny days, it's a pretty great spot to be.
Yeah. Our number one standout, underrated attraction
is... What is it? What is it?
It may surprise you. It may shock you. It may anger you. But I'm going to stand by it. The number one underrated attraction is Living with the Land.
Yeah, Living with the Land is amazing.
It's over in Epcot. I understand if you're upset by this, because it's very educational. And it's definitely the kind of attraction that, if you describe it to your child, they're going to be like, why on earth would we ride that? But it's great. It's like 2 rides in one. It's over in the Land Pavilion. It's a dark ride. So it's, when I say 2 rides in one, it's like a dark ride and it takes you through like the biomes of Earth. But then like the second half of it is like a behind the scenes tour of Disney greenhouses. And these greenhouses actually produce food that they serve in Disney restaurants.
I'll forward to the greenhouses here, because it really is. It's like a dark ride, and then it's like a separate educational ride.
Yeah, and it's another all ages ride. It's just a very chill boat ride, and it's pretty long. People joke about it just being like the place that you go, bring your baby to like take a nap.
Or bring yourself to take a nap.
Yeah, absolutely.
This opened alongside everything else in the park in 1982. It was sponsored by Kraft, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know why, but...
Okay.
Yeah.
Until 92. It was originally called Listen to the Land, and it changed to Living with the Land in 93. There was a major refurbishment in 1993. The only major refurbishment, and during that time a new song was added, as well as a new opening and a new ending scene. So do you know what they changed in that ending scene? Because that's the part that like I love the most about this ride.
Oh yeah, the big like projections.
I'm not. Yeah, I mean. Yeah. I do like this part.
I think that was added. I think that was an addition.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah.
So the second part of the attraction, which is like the greenhouses part.
Yep.
I'm going to get us through the fish and into the greenhouses here. So the second part of the attraction used to be narrated by cast members the same way that like Jungle Cruise is. But they changed that in 2006, so now the whole thing's a recording. I'm going to get us to the farm scene, because do you remember from the top of the show?
That was our fun fact.
When Loop was talking about fun facts. So this, I said that that end screen was my favorite. That was a lie. This room is my favorite. And you do get to see Walt's dog in this room. There's some Easter eggs in here, too, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, so this is an underrated attraction. I mean, in truly the definition of underrated. Is it the best attraction? No, it's not the best attraction, but it's the one that you're most likely to not give the time of day. And it's definitely worth the time of day. like, yeah, you're gonna have to drag your children onto it or lie to them about what it's gonna be.
Or go do the ride while the children are doing something else.
Yeah, but once they're on it, they're probably going to enjoy it because, like I said, like the float through at the beginning, like you go through a thunderstorm. There's like, is it action packed? No, but it's immersive and kind of cool, and there are animatronics. And the greenhouse part is actually really interesting. Like, I'm sorry to sound like a nerd, but like I learn things in there, and yeah,
Well,
you don't.
no,
learn anything?
I'm 100% with you on this,
Yeah.
but it's like you transition from kids into learning things.
Right,
And
you're right. Okay. All right, maybe this is underrated for adults, but I don't care. You should make your kids go on it. Anyway, if you really want to torture your children, they have a behind the seeds tour, which we've paid for but not taken before. I know. I don't know, we were tired. I booked too early of a slot or something. But yes, there is a behind the scenes tour if you're super into the greenhouses. Maybe the coolest part of living with the land, and maybe it's not underrated because I do feel like word has like leaked out about this, is the holiday overlay.
Yeah.
Glimmering greenhouses. And so you have to wait until the sun goes down during the holidays. But if you ride this ride during the holidays, they light it up and it's gorgeous. They do, they put Christmas lights on everything in the greenhouses, and they do a really, really good job. And it's greenhouse, and it's nighttime, and well, you see it right here. It's great. It took us, how many times did we try to ride glimmering greenhouses
I
before
think it
we
took
actually
us
did?
4 years of attempts before we finally got on it.
Like we rode it before the sun was down, and then like the ride broke down, and I don't know. It took us a while, but when we finally did get on it, it was totally worth the effort. So yes, that is my number one underrated attraction in all of Walt Disney World, living with the land.
Yep.
You can fight me in the comments.
So on our list, we've got Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin. We've got the People Mover, Dinosaur. We've got the Main Street Vehicles. We've got Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress. Kid Cot Fun Stops with bonus Bijutsukan Gallery and the DuckTales Scavenger Hunt. We've got the Grand Fiesta Tour starring the Three Caballeros, Finding Nemo, The Big Blue and Beyond, Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular, and Living with the Land.
And yeah, the reason we chose this topic is just it as true Disney park nerds, it can be almost, you get asked the question over and over again, like, what can I not miss when I go to the Disney parks? And you feel almost obligated to list the hottest new rides.
Right.
And yes, of course, like you want people to experience the thrilling big e-ticket rides, but the days are long. And if you're like spend your entire day fighting to like get on these e-ticket rides or waiting in super long lines, you're really kind of missing out. There are just a lot of hidden gems at these parks that often, almost everything on this list is going to have like walk-on style times. So they're great like fillers in your day. You will really enjoy them. They're in my opinion not to be missed, not to be overlooked.
Not always walk on. I mean, there are definitely some rides that get popular at certain times, including Buzz Lightyear, but they're more likely to be walk-ons probably than any of the e-ticket stuff. That's for sure. I want to know what your most underrated Walt Disney World attraction is. Like, what's the one that you always insist on going on, even though your friends are like, oh my God. And you're like, why? It's so good. For me, that's Living with the Land. This one, I mean, I guess that's why we're partners, is into Living with the Land, so we don't have to argue. But what's yours? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, I would strongly encourage you to check out another one of our videos called the Top 10 worst animated Disney movie sequels. Thanks for joining us on this first episode of the Disney Rabbit Hole podcast. If you stuck with us this far, congratulations and thank you, because this has been rough.
It's going to get better. This is my first podcast ever.
And a masterpiece it will eventually be. Luke, thanks for doing podcasts with me, and we'll see you all in the next one.